Hi, I'm Lindsay, and welcome to the final week of our meal prep series. I hope you've enjoyed planning and preparing these recipes with me. My goal was to help take the frustration out of mealtime, and it's my sincere hope that you have found them helpful in getting a healthy meal on your table. In our last week together, I want to chat about your long-term success, the importance of getting the family involved, the cost of healthy eating, and menu rotations to make life easier. Then we'll dive into our Power Hour. So now that you've got a few weeks of meal prepping under your belt, I hope you're feeling more confident and less stressed around mealtime. As you start meal prepping on your own, think about the ingredients you use often. Think about things like pasta, tomato sauce, eggs, beans, veggies, whatever it is. Those are ingredients that you can pick up each time you go to the store because you know that you'll use them frequently. Now, over the last few weeks, we have tried several different meal prep methods, and we'll try even more this week. My goal is to expose you to several different options so that you can decide what works best for you. Perhaps after this week, you'll decide that having pre-portioned meals works best, or the reheat and eat method is your favorite. Whatever it is, keep at it. Long-term success happens when we keep making that healthy choice the easy choice. Another tip for long-term success is to get your family involved. This is especially important if you have picky eaters in the house. Letting kids help plan and prepare meals can get them familiar with new ingredients and make them more interested in trying new foods. This also helps them take ownership of the meal that they helped prepare. There's no need to be part of the Clean Plate Club. Instead, let's aim to keep mealtimes fun and keep everyone involved. I find this helps mealtime go much smoother. And remember, if you have a picky eater, it can take repeated exposures to new foods before kids, and sometimes even adults, will start to accept that food. So keep them guessing by preparing foods in new ways. Maybe you prepare a vegetable that isn't super popular in your house by roasting it one week, using it in a crock pot meal on another week, and then serving it raw with their favorite dip. Help them see that broccoli, for instance, doesn't have to be boiled to death to be part of the dinner plate. It can be made into broccoli rice, slathered with a bit of real butter and salt, or dipped into ranch dip. Keeping your family involved will help teach them lifelong skills and habits to keep them healthy for good. One barrier I hear often is that healthy eating is so expensive. Now, while healthy eating can be expensive if you're purchasing fancy ingredients that you only use once, or even supplements, real, whole foods can be inexpensive and part of your weekly grocery list. Our weekly grocery lists have cost me no more than $50 to $60 each week, and that's just assuming that I have a few spices and pantry staples. I have tried not to use too many crazy ingredients, and with that, I hope that you can see that you can eat healthy on any budget. Our last topic this week is menu rotations. Now, there's no need to reinvent the wheel each week, and like I've said before, if you don't enjoy poring over Pinterest, cookbooks, or food blogs for recipes, then simply write down your family's favorite recipes on a sheet of paper, and each week just pick a few to make. Perhaps you add one new meal every few weeks, and if your family loves it, it goes on the list. You can then rotate menus. So for example, after our 4 weeks together, simply repeat the 4 weeks again. You'll already be comfortable with the recipes because you've made them before, and now you can make tweaks that you'd like for this time around. Remember, always try and make that healthy choice the easy choice. Now let's get to our Power Hour. This week, our recipes include slow cooker chicken tacos, cilantro lime rice, a potato, quinoa, and arugula bowl, a chopped Asian salad, an oatmeal bake, frozen peanut butter bananas, and bento boxes. Wow, let's get to work. So during our Power Hour, we will cook our quinoa, make our oatmeal bake from start to finish. We'll also prep components for our bento boxes, arugula bowl, and chopped salad, and then we'll put our slow cooker meal together and prep our bananas for the freezer. To get started with our power hour, I am going to be preparing our quinoa for our sweet potato and arugula salad. Now, if quinoa is new to you, and yes, it's pronounced quinoa, not quinoa, I hear that quite often. Quinoa is just a really great alternative to something like brown rice or white rice. It's got lots of protein in it. It is high in carbohydrates, so if you're counting your carbohydrates, that's something to be mindful of. But I just love it. It has kind of a nutty flavor, and it just gives it a different take than just your normal brown rice. So, not that there's anything wrong with brown rice, but I just like to change things up. You cook it the same way. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So I'm gonna do 1 cup of dried quinoa, and then I'm gonna do 2 cups of water. You could also, if you had some leftover chicken or vegetable broth, you could easily use that for your liquid instead of water. It is up to you. So we'll do our 1 cup of quinoa, we'll do a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then two cups of water. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of seasoning to this. Since I'm not using a broth, I'm gonna do just a little bit of salt. And then I like to also add in some garlic powder. So we'll sprinkle just a little bit of garlic powder in there. My trick for cooking quinoa is you'll put it onto the burner, you'll bring it up to a boil, and then you'll give it a stir, reduce the heat down to simmer, and then you'll cover it by putting the lid on, but then you're gonna just slightly leave a little bit of space so that a little bit of steam can escape. That's gonna help ensure that the quinoa fluffs up the way that we want it to. The next thing we're gonna do is boil some eggs for our DIY bento boxes. So all I'm gonna do is, I've got 4 eggs ready to go. So I'm gonna get my pot, I'm gonna put the eggs in and then cover them with about 1 inch of water, bring that up to a roaring boil, and then I'm gonna turn the heat off, cover the eggs, and let them just hang out for about 10 to 12 minutes. That always ensures I have a perfectly boiled egg. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be preparing a peanut butter banana freezer snack / breakfast. This is one of those things that you could have as a grab and go for breakfast, or you could have it after school, or just as a great snack on the weekends, whenever you guys want it. This is one of my daughter's favorites. She loves to help me make these, so if you have kids, I encourage you guys to get them involved. So what I've got is just a pan. I've done a little bit of parchment paper, and then we've got some popsicle sticks that I pulled from our little craft section at home. I've got some ripe bananas, and I'm just gonna peel them, and then we're gonna cut them in half, or break them in half, and then they're gonna become kind of like little banana popsicles. So, my daughter thinks it's so fun to get to cut these in half. So you just cut them in half, and then you take your popsicle stick and you just kind of make it into a little popsicle. Aren't those cute? So then I'm just gonna lay them out and pop them back into the freezer for a little while so that they'll firm up. And then we're gonna coat them with some peanut butter and then a fun ingredient that makes breakfast a little extra special. While those guys firm up and I'm waiting on my eggs and quinoa to boil, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my oven so that I can get started on my oatmeal bake. And my quinoa is boiling, I hear it. So I'm gonna give it a stir. And what you're looking for is that the little quinoas will start to, the little grains will start to pop, and that's when they get real tasty. So I'm gonna turn my heat down to a simmer. Put the lid on, and again, just leaving a little tiny bit of space for some steam to be able to escape. My eggs aren't boiling yet, so I'm gonna leave those there. And then I'll get started on my oatmeal bake. This oatmeal bake is so yummy, and it's one of those recipes that's really versatile, so you can really change things up to kind of match whatever mood you're in or whatever season it is. Get the fruits that match the season. Pull my recipe out here. So what I'm gonna do is mix together. I've got old-fashioned oats, so these are not the quick cooking oats. These are just those old-fashioned ones, the kind you have to kind of wait on. I'm gonna do 2 cups of old-fashioned oats. And I like to transfer them into these clear containers. It just helps me see how much of ingredients that I have. And actually these are old containers that I think like almonds came in them. So I just took the label off and actually spray painted the tops, and no need to spend a lot of money on fancy containers. So we've got 2 cups of those rolled oats. Then I'm gonna add in some chia seeds. Chia seeds aren't something that we have used before. However, when we did our smoothie packs last week, this could easily be something that you throw into your smoothie if you wanted to add in a little extra nutrition. Chia seeds have lots of nutritional benefits, lots of good fiber. They kind of gel up when you add liquid to them, so that really helps to lower cholesterol, really helps get that fiber going. So we're gonna use 1/4 cup, so we'll put that in there. Then we're gonna do a teaspoon of baking powder. And this is a recipe, like I said, it's really versatile. So you can kind of add or take things away as you please, because it's a pretty forgiving one. So I like that about it. Okay, one of my favorite spices is cinnamon. I use cinnamon year round. It's so delicious. This one's gonna call for 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. So we're gonna get a lot of cinnamon going. But it's such a warm spice. And it also helps, some have shown that it helps to maintain a healthy blood sugar. We're gonna also do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Add in there. Next, we're gonna add the wet ingredients. And one thing that I really like about this recipe is that it's just kind of a throw it all into one bowl, pop it into a pan and go. So I'm not having to pull out a bunch of different items, a bunch of different bowls. So it's 1 cup of milk. I'm just using some skim milk. It's 3 egg whites. So 3 egg whites. So we'll see if I can get these separated. You can also use the like the egg beater version. That's just the egg whites, if you didn't want to have to worry about separating them. Okay, we've got our 3 egg whites. The next thing we need is 1 cup of yogurt. I'm choosing to use just a vanilla Greek yogurt. I like the Greek yogurt because it has a lot of protein in it. So it's just an easy way to boost up the protein content. And another thing that you can actually do with this recipe, if you were really trying to get a lot of protein, is that you can actually add a scoop of protein powder. If that's something that you've got in your house that you enjoy regularly, then you can always throw in a scoop of that. The next thing is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then we're gonna do 1/3 cup of honey. And this is optional if you're not really big into honey. You could use agave. You don't even have to use anything if you don't want to. But I like the little bit of sweetness that it imparts. Actually, I'm just gonna take the lid off. And you'll see that this makes quite a bit, so you're not gonna get too much sugar per serving. Now we're just gonna stir it up. And then at this point, like I said, it can get really versatile. So You could throw in some sliced bananas. You could throw in raisins or dried cranberries. You could really throw in anything, that protein powder if you wanted to. But today, I've chosen to throw in about a cup of fresh blueberries. So I've washed my blueberries. This is a half cup. If a few extra get in there, that's okay. When it comes to blueberries, the more the merrier. So I'm gonna grease an 8x8 baking pan, pour my mixture in, and then pop it into a preheated oven that I preheated to 350 degrees. And we'll just pour this in. We're just gonna bake it until it's set. So we'll keep an eye on it, but it typically takes about 25 minutes or so. Okay, I hear my eggs boiling, so I'm gonna go check those guys. We are up to a boil, so I'm gonna turn the heat off, put the lid on, and then just leave them be for about 10 to 12 minutes. I can also check my quinoa while I'm over here. Ooh, it's looking good. It's almost done. I'm basically just waiting for all of that water to get absorbed, and then I'll just be able to fluff it up and it'll be ready to go. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is make my peanut dressing for my chopped Asian salad. So I've just got a mason jar, and I'm gonna just put all the ingredients into the mason jar, shake it up, and then pop it into the fridge so it's ready to go when we make our salad. So, just a few ingredients in this. You could buy a store-bought peanut dressing if you prefer. I just like the flavor of this dressing, particularly this recipe. Stir up my dressing a little bit. I like to buy the natural peanut butters. I always try to find one that doesn't have hydrogenated oils in it. If I can stay away from hydrogenated oils, all the better. 1 tablespoon of our natural peanut butter. And we'll use our peanut butter here in just a little bit for our bananas. If you have a nut allergy in your family, you can always use a different type of nut butter. You can use like a cashew or an almond butter, or you could even use a completely nut-free option like a sun butter or a wow butter. That's another option. Okay, the next thing is gonna be 2 tablespoons of honey. Y'all see why I got the big thing of honey. I like using honey. All right, we need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So you'll notice that I'm not adding salt to this because your soy sauce is gonna have all the salt that you need. I did choose a low sodium soy sauce, so that's always an option as well. If you find that this is too salty for you, you can always decrease the amount of soy sauce if you'd like to. Okay, the next thing is 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. This might be something that you already have in your pantry, but if not, it's definitely a good thing to keep on hand. You might not use it every single week, but it's kind of like our sesame oil, where we'll use it just enough to where it imparts a lot of yummy flavor, and it's not expensive, so it's definitely a good pantry staple to have on hand. We're gonna add in half a teaspoon of sesame oil. This packs a lot of flavor in just a little amount, so you don't need very much. And then we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of olive oil. This will just kind of help emulsify it all together. And that's it. So you have this delicious peanut dressing, homemade. You control all the ingredients in there, and it's ready to go for our Asian chopped salad night. The next thing I'm going to do is chop up our bell pepper for our salad night. So I'm just gonna chop this guy up, pop him into a baggie, and call it good. You could always do strips as well if your family prefers that. You're gonna be amazed at how quickly this salad comes together come mealtime. I'm gonna label this baggie so I know exactly what recipe it's for. So my dressing and my peppers are all done. The next thing I wanna do is check my quinoa, and then I'm ready to make my crock pot meal. So let's check our quinoa. So I'm gonna pop it off the heat, turn my heat off. As you'll see, the water has absorbed and it's just fluffing up really nicely. So now we'll just let it cool. And then once it's cool, then we can transfer it into a container to reheat it and eat it later in the week. Okay, next up, we're gonna work on our chicken tacos. So this one is really difficult to put together. Bear with me. We're gonna put in 1 cup of salsa. So I've just got my baggie already labeled and ready to go. Make sure it's freezer safe. The type of salsa doesn't really matter. I'm using a mild. The chunkier though, the better. That always tends to kind of add in extra vegetables and tomatoes when the tacos come out of the slow cooker. But whatever salsa you've got on hand or whatever your family likes is perfectly fine. Next, I'm gonna add in some garlic powder and some cumin. So add in some garlic and then a little bit of cumin. So it's about 3/4 of a teaspoon of cumin and about a teaspoon of garlic. The last thing we're gonna do is pop in whole breasts of chicken. So what I've done is written the recipe name and then also the directions. So if for some reason I end up not making this week and I find it, in a month or so in my freezer, then I'll know exactly what directions I need to follow in order to cook it. And then this is ready to go into our freezer. I'm gonna wash my hands, and while we're in the freezer, I'm gonna pull out our bananas. Now this is the fun part. So I'm gonna work on my peanut butter bananas. And this comes together so fast. And like I said before, this is definitely something that kiddos like to help with. I know my daughter loves to help with it. So what I'm gonna do is take some peanut butter, and if you don't have kind of runny peanut butter, you can always pop it into the microwave to make sure that it's real smooth and kind of dippable. We're gonna dip our bananas into the peanut butter, and then for funsies, I'm gonna add in some semi-sweet mini chocolate chips. So I'm gonna just kind of drizzle those on top as just an extra sweet treat. That's probably why they never last very long in our freezer. So I'm gonna put some peanut butter into the bowl, microwave it for just a couple seconds just to make sure that it's really pliable, and then we'll come back and start the assembly line. Here's how it works. Banana popsicle. You can coat the whole thing in peanut butter. You can do a drizzle. You do whatever floats your boat. I like to do a full coat. And in our house, we use Wow butter, but today I'm gonna use peanut butter. So just pop that back on, and then just take a few of your, and I chose semi-sweet, and I like the mini chocolate chips, just because they kind of work a little bit better. You can make eyeballs out of these guys. You could even put those candy eyeballs on. Whatever you want to do to make the food more fun, go for it. This is a great snack for breakfast. I always like to encourage people to do a protein and a healthy carbohydrate with snacks. And this is that healthy carb from your banana, a little bit of protein from your peanut butter, and then a little chocolate never hurt anybody. And then after we finish assembling these guys, I'm just gonna pop them back into the freezer so that they'll firm up, and then you can just store them in a Pyrex, or you could even just leave them like this on the parchment. That's it, super simple, such a great grab and go snack, and you saw how fast it came together. So we'll pop these back into our freezer. and I'll steal a chocolate chip. I'm checking our oatmeal bake. It's almost done. I'm just waiting for it to set completely through. So we'll come back and check on it in just a minute. The next thing I'm gonna do is prepare our sweet potatoes for our quinoa, sweet potato, and arugula salad. Essentially, all I'm gonna do is peel the sweet potatoes and chop them up into a small dice. Remember, the smaller you cut your vegetables, the faster they'll cook. So we'll just do that. And then on cooking night, as soon as I walk in the door, I'll turn my oven on, and then I'll just pop these guys into the oven to let them roast, which is gonna create such a warm, yummy, delicious salad. I really like using sweet potatoes for this recipe, especially as we enter into kind of a sweet potato season. But you could use regular potatoes if you prefer. However, I really like sweet potatoes or butternut squash for this one. I want something a little bit kind of sweet, but also these sweet potatoes have beta carotene in them, extra fiber versus a regular potato. So anytime that I can kind of amp up the nutrition, I try to. So I've got my sweet potatoes that are ready to go. I'm just gonna roast these when it's time for dinner later on this week. So I've got my eggs off of the stove. I'm just gonna run some cool water to kind of stop the cooking process. Like we were talking about with batch cooking, this would be a really great opportunity to add in even some extra eggs and then hard boil those to have for snacks later on in the week. If you've ever been to a famous coffee shop, you might have noticed that sometimes they'll have these little bento boxes that have different snack items in them. I love to do this for actual mealtime, so like a lunch, or even after school or on the way to a practice. It's a really easy grab and go meal to have on hand. And I'm just gonna use these little containers. They're grab and go, they're dishwasher safe, they're super handy to have available. So I'm gonna add in a few different items, some protein items, some carbohydrates, get lots of different things going on so that this will be a healthy and balanced lunch or pretty big snack or pre-game meal. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in one of our hard-boiled eggs. Now for this, you could go ahead and slice your egg and put it in there with some salt and pepper if that's how you prefer to have your hard-boiled egg, or you could just peel it and leave it in there whole, which is actually what I'm gonna do. So we'll have one hard-boiled egg in our little box. We're also gonna do half of an apple. So I've already washed my apples, and a couple ways you can do this. You could always slice them up really thin. You could do just, kind of like this, and you can just kind of eat as you wish. I like to take out the core though on 2 big slices, and then I put them face down so that they don't brown as easily. You could also brush them with a little bit of lemon juice if you'd like to kind of keep them from browning. So those guys go in. I'm also gonna put in a little bit of a nut butter just so that I can dip my apples in there if I want to. So just about 1 tablespoon. Doesn't have to be a lot. You could also put this in a separate container if you're afraid that it might touch another food that you don't want it to. And then I love these flat out breads or the sandwich thins. They're such a great multi-grain, whole grain option. So I'm just going to cut these into little wedges, just like that. And then we'll do 4 wedges in each of our boxes. So get those lined up. And then the last thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of cheese. You could use string cheese or just cheese sticks. I really like these small little cheese rounds. I got the light version, so that will go in there as well. And then the last thing, I said it was cheese, but actually the last thing is some grapes. So you can just kind of tear off your grapes. I've already washed these guys. So our grapes go in, our cheese gets tucked in there. And isn't that just such a precious little bento box that's ready for grab and go lunches all week, full of healthy carbohydrates with your fruit and your whole grain bread, and then healthy protein with your peanut butter and your egg, and then a little bit of calcium with your cheese. So we'll just pop the lid on here. I'm gonna make 3 more. All 4 of these are ready to go. I'll just pop them into my refrigerator and I can pull them out whenever I need a lunch or a grab and go snack for the kids in the car. Our oatmeal bake is ready. Look at all of that yummy blueberry goodness. I'm just gonna let it cool and then I'll cover it and it can stay in the fridge all week and we can grab and go what we need for breakfasts or even for snacks. So my quinoa has cooled a little bit and I am just going to move it into a storage container and then I'll pop this into my refrigerator. And that is it. Our power hour is complete. So we have lots of healthy ingredients and lots of healthy meals that we can turn to for the whole week. Right now we're gonna start our sweet potato, arugula, and quinoa salad. The first thing I need to do, just walked in, got my pan out with my parchment paper, got my sweet potatoes out, and now I'm gonna preheat my oven to 425 degrees. So this comes together really quickly. The longest part is just getting the sweet potatoes to roast. So we're just looking for them to be fork tender. So I'm gonna spread them out. And then I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil and then salt and pepper on top. If you don't have olive oil, another oil I like to use is avocado oil. That's a really yummy one. All right, just make sure these are all coated. And then when our oven heats up, we'll pop those in for about 25 minutes or so. And about midway through, I'll check on them, give them a little toss to make sure they're cooking evenly. And while they're cooking, I'll put together the rest of the salad so it's ready to go. So for the rest of the salad, it comes together so quickly. Once the roasted potatoes come out, I'm gonna toss them with a little bit of honey, and then we'll add them to the rest of our components. Tonight I'm gonna be using a baby arugula as our green. I love arugula. It's got a little bit of a peppery bite to it, so it adds a little bit of interest versus just your traditional romaine or, butter leaf lettuce. But you can use whatever you have on hand or whatever your family prefers, and you can use the whole thing and toss it all together, or you can make individual plates, whatever works best for you guys. Pre-done salad mixes are so handy. I love having them around. We also have our chopped red bell pepper. Add some beautiful vibrance. The more colors on your plate, the better. Remember that different color vegetables and fruits offer different types of nutrients. The next thing I'm gonna add in are some chopped pecans. If you don't like pecans, choose something different. I like the kind of the soft bite that the pecan has. You could also do walnuts or slivered almonds. So the next thing I'm gonna add in is our cooked quinoa. You can add all of this, you can add some of it, whatever floats your boat. I love quinoa and I love that it's that healthy carbohydrate and it just adds a little something different to your salad. Next, I'm gonna sprinkle in some feta. One thing about cheese, when people start to try to eat healthy, I know that they tend to kind of see cheese as, oh, it's, not really great for me. And while a lot of cheese isn't great for you, a little bit is just fine. And one of my biggest tips, especially when I do like grocery store tours and such, is I tell people that when it comes to cheese, try choosing the strongest flavor of cheese that you like, because you don't have to use as much of it in order to get the flavor from it. So think about using something like a mozzarella cheese, which doesn't have a very strong flavor. You kind of have to use a lot of it in order to taste it. versus something like a feta cheese, a goat cheese, a blue cheese, or something like a Vermont sharp cheddar. Has a lot of flavor in just a little bit. So you don't need very much in order to really taste it. All right. So I used about half a container, but you can use however much you like. So that is ready. All I have to do now is wait for my sweet potatoes to finish roasting, and then I'll show you how I'll finish this salad up. We're gonna complete our quinoa, sweet potato, and arugula salad. You'll notice that our sweet potatoes are still warm, fresh out of the oven. So I'm gonna transfer them into a big bowl. To this, I'm gonna add in a little bit of honey, and then I'm also gonna add in a few scallions, and then I'm gonna toss it to make sure it's completely coated, and then we'll combine it with our arugula salad that we've already prepared. Just like we did before, I'm gonna just use my scissors, a good squirt of honey. So this salad doesn't have any, quote, dressing. It just has the honey, and then the warmth from the sweet potatoes kind of makes it taste like a dressing, especially once it hits that feta. Then we'll add in all of our sweet potatoes. This is always such a crowd pleaser. It's beautiful, colorful, and it comes together really quickly once the sweet potatoes are roasted up. So those warm sweet potatoes are hitting that feta, kind of making it melt just a little, but dinner on the table in less than 30 minutes. So for chicken taco night, all I did was set my freezer bag of prepared chicken. Remember, that was just our chicken breast, the salsa, a little bit of garlic and cumin. I pulled that out of the freezer and let it thaw overnight, making sure in the fridge. So making sure that we stay temperature safe, but we're also able to thaw it. And then in the morning time, I just popped it into my crock pot and turned it on. You can do high for about 4 hours or low for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. What we're looking for is for the chicken to be easily shreddable. So I'm gonna check my chicken now. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. And I'm gonna grab 2 forks and see if I can shred it. And if I can, then I'll shred all of the chicken. Oh, it's so good. It's perfectly shreddable. And that salsa, ooh, yum, yum. So the flavor of the salsa and that garlic and cumin have just really permeated through the whole chicken. And now it kind of has a little bit of a sauce. And again, I talked about using kind of a chunkier salsa. And if you do, then you'll kind of have, so you can see how beautiful that chicken is. It's shredded up so nicely. It's retained all of its moisture from being in the crock pot. Never dry chicken in the crock pot. So I'm gonna put the lid on so it'll stay warm while I prepare the rice. My favorite 90-second rice. Pop that in the microwave. Good to go. So simple. All right, I'm gonna turn my pan on to about medium. And I'm just going to saute up a little bit of garlic, and then I'm gonna chop up 2 scallions until the scallions become soft. Then I'll add in my rice, a little bit of lime juice, top it off with some cilantro, and it's done. So here's a trick when it comes to scallions. If you don't wanna have to pull out your cutting board, get some good garlic in there. Just get some scissors. Make sure they're clean, that they haven't been used for something else crazy. And then you're just going to cut those guys up. Remember, you don't want your garlic to get too hot. It can burn really easily, and once it's burned, then it tastes bitter. So we don't want that. So this is just a fun way to kind of jazz up traditional brown rice, which can be kind of boring on its own. Adding in those scallions and the lime juice really makes it go well with the tacos. All right. You can do lime juice to taste. I tend to like a lot of lime flavor. That's such an easy way to brighten up anything. Okay, that's done. Simple as that. The last thing I'm gonna do is chop up some cilantro to throw on top, and then we'll assemble our tacos. So I've pulled my rice off. I'm gonna just put it into this serving bowl. And then set this aside. And the last thing I'm gonna add is some fresh cilantro. Cilantro is one of those things that I try to always have in my fridge because it always adds such great flavor to any dish. So the best thing to do is just kind of pull off the leaves. Try not to get too much of the stem. And we'll just give this a little bit of a rough chop. Add that to our rice. So a serving of this recipe, we've got 3 corn tortillas. So I just use these. They also have those really fun like street taco size corn tortillas, which I think are really fun. So you can choose whatever you like better. Essentially, we're just going to get some of our chicken into our tacos. You could add some cheese to this if you like, or more salsa, whatever your family enjoys. We use a lot of avocado in our house. Maybe some avocado slices on top of a couple of them. And then maybe a little bit of some fresh cilantro, just kind of torn up. That, and then we'll add in a little bit of our rice. And dinner is served. Maybe I'll add in a little bit of salsa. Now we're gonna make our Asian chopped salad. There's just a few things we have to do to prepare the salad. The first thing is, I'm gonna use edamame in here. Now you can get shelled edamame, however, my Kroger didn't have shelled edamame when I went, so I'm gonna just steam this bag, and then I'll just get to pop the edamame pods out of their shells. So this is gonna steam in the microwave for 5 to 7 minutes, and then I'm gonna let it cool, and while it cools, I'll prepare the rest of the salad. So the rest of the salad comes together so quickly. We have our peanut dressing that we already made, and all I'm gonna do is add in a bag of coleslaw mix. If you don't like the coleslaw mix, you can use something different, but I just love it because it already has some carrots added in. It's already shredded up for me, so I don't have to do any of the work. Our red bell pepper. Add in lots of fun color. I'm gonna add in 1 can of rinsed and drained garbanzo beans. You could also add in shredded chicken if you want to, or really any protein. I just like to keep this one plant-based and just use the garbanzo beans. And then the last thing is gonna be some fresh cilantro. This is such a colorful, crunchy, yummy salad. Sometimes I'll add cashews to it as well, just to add in even more crunch. Our edamame are out of the microwave. They're still a little warm, but I'm gonna show you how to kind of depod them. So they come in these cute little pods, and you just use your thumb to pop the edamame out. So obviously, if you had the pre-shelled ones, it's a little easier, but this salad comes together so quickly that what's a couple minutes of shelling edamame. I'm actually gonna serve a few on the side of the salads so that people can pop them themselves. because who doesn't like an activity with dinner? Just gonna toss everything together now. This is so colorful. Lots of vegetables, and then you have protein and healthy carbs from those garbanzo beans and that edamame. And then we'll just drizzle with our peanut dressing. So I just shook it up before I served it. Make sure everything kind of mixes up nicely. This has that yummy peanut butter and the soy sauce and the honey and the rice vinegar and that sesame oil. Smells amazing and tastes amazing too. All right. And just like that, dinner's served. If you've enjoyed this series, I encourage you to like our Facebook page at Baptist Health Community Outreach. We do cooking demos, virtual classes, grocery store tours, all sorts of stuff. I know that you're going to enjoy it if you've enjoyed this series.